What's up, everyone? Jeff from Retro Arcade Gaming on YouTube, back with another episode of Port Battles. In this series, we take a classic arcade game and put its mini home console and computer ports head to head. This time, we're diving into the Konami classic Track and Field, originally released in Japan and Europe in 1983 under the title Hyper Olympic. It came to the US in 1984 via Century as Track and Field. Shortly thereafter, the European release was renamed to Match. Often regarded as the original button masher, the game's goal was simple: press the buttons as fast as humanly possible to gain speed. The arcade cabinet had 2 run buttons and 1 action button for jumps or throws. Alternating the run buttons as quickly as possible made your athlete run faster. Players came up with clever techniques using combs, pens, pencils, and other objects to maximize speed, which eventually forced Konami to design anti-cheat buttons, and they even released a trackball version. Competitive players like Hector Fly Rodriguez, a former, possibly still the current world record holder, elevated this game to an art form. Watching someone at that level play this game is incredible. The arcade original featured 6 events: the 100-meter dash, the long jump, the javelin throw, the 110-meter hurdles, the hammer throw, and the high jump. Each event had a qualifying time or distance to clear in order to advance. Depending on the game's dip switch settings, the game either ended after all 6 events or restarted with tougher qualifying marks. Track and Field drew clear comparisons to Activision's Decathlon, which launched slightly earlier and inspired a wave of successors, including Daley Thompson's Decathlon, Stadium Events, Summer Games, Track and Field 2, Hypersports, Konami 88, and International Track and Field. For this video, I'm mostly going to stick to official ports to keep this from turning into a 2-hour marathon. Let's kick things off with the arcade original running on MAME.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 10.10 seconds. The distance, 6.75 meters. The distance, 72.99 meters.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 12.20 seconds. The distance, 85.00 meters.
Next, we move to the MSX. This situation is unique. If you want to play all 6 arcade events from the original arcade game, you need 2 different titles released by Konami in 1984, Track and Field 1 and Track and Field 2. Track and Field 1 features the 100-meter dash, long jump, hammer throw, and the brutal 400-meter dash. Track and Field 2 features the 110-meter hurdles, the javelin throw, the high jump, and the exhausting 1,600-meter run. Both ports look sharp, the graphics are impressive, as is the sound. The hammer throw switches from a top-down view in the arcade version to a side view here, but it's more of a curiosity than a flaw. On the keyboard, this is a pure button mashing game. On the joystick, it turns into a full-on joystick shaker. Either way, the MSX delivers a strong home version, and we'll focus on the 6 arcade events that are spread across those 2 titles I previously mentioned. From there, let's jump over to the Apple II. Published by Atarisoft in 1983, this version, at least emulated, is a frustrating one. Atarisoft bundled a special track and field controller with their ports. That's for the Apple II, the Atari 2600, the 8-bit Atari, and the Commodore 64. Unfortunately, emulation for the Apple II doesn't handle the controller well. Apple, in their infinite wisdom, only made the game playable via that controller. I could run the 100-meter dash, but there was no functional jump input either on my joystick or on the keyboard. The long jump attempts always ended in fouls. After dozens of retries attempting different keyboard buttons, I simply gave up. The graphics are simple, athletes look kind of alien-like, and the sound effects are sparse. Next, let's look at the Commodore 64. In 1984, the C64 got its port also via Atarisoft. It included that bundled controller, but unlike the Apple II version, you could play this one with the standard keyboard or joystick. It includes all 6 events in order. It looks good, sounds decent, and offers both keyboard and joysticks controls. The keyboard turns it into a straight button masher, while the joystick uses left and right waggling for speed and the button for jumps or throws. I went with the joystick, but sensitivity was unforgiving, missed the exact movement angle, and you lose speed. I had to replay events many times to qualify. There are 4 difficulty levels: easy, normal, difficult, and awesome, which simply tighten qualifying standards. Let's move over to the Atari 2600. Released in 1984, this port also shipped with the track and field controller, but could be played with a standard joystick. Here you wiggle the joystick left and right for speed, use the fire button for jumps and throws. This was one of the first games to use Atari's Super Chip, which added 128 bytes of RAM directly in the cartridge to boost graphics and sound. While the sound is still limited, and prone to clipping apparently in this case, visuals are surprisingly strong for 2600 hardware. Continuing with Atari, the 8-bit port came out the same year. It looks colorful, almost cartoon-like. Sound effects are decent, but gameplay feels off. In most versions, pressing the jump button stops your athlete until you release to set the angle. On the Atari 8-bit, your character keeps running until you release the button, which throws off timing. Long jump and javelin were particularly tricky, at least for me. I never figured out the hammer throw, fouled all three attempts. Somehow I still advanced to the high jump. All 6 events are here. The control quirks make this version frustrating to master. Now let's check out the Nintendo Entertainment System. Konami brought track and field to the NES in 1985, but it wasn't a straight arcade port. Instead, it's kind of a hybrid mashup of track and field and hypersports. From track and field, you get the 100-meter dash, long jump, 110-meter hurdles, and high jump. Added from hypersports are skeet shooting, archery, and the triple jump, giving the NES version 7 events total. Controls are straightforward, A button builds speed, the D-pad sets the angle. Sounds are upbeat and energetic, if not arcade accurate, and the visuals are colorful and clean. Next up, the Famicom version, released in 1985 under its original Japanese title, Hyper Olympic. This one is closer to the arcade in spirit, but slimmer in scope, including only 4 events: the 100-meter dash, long jump, 110-meter hurdles, and javelin throw. What really made it unique was the controller. Konami produced the Hypershot controller specifically for Hyper Olympic and Hyper Sports. It featured 2 oversized arcade-style buttons, one for running and one for jumping or throwing, making the experience more authentic than the standard Famicom pads. Let's shift over to the Amstrad Color PC. This port, for whatever reason, wasn't sold as a standalone title. It came bundled in Ocean Software's 1988 compilation Game, Set, and Match 2. The version can be played with keyboard or joystick, though with a joystick it becomes more of a shaker game. Unfortunately, it falls flat. There's no music, sound effects are bare bones, and foul detection is inconsistent. The high jump is particularly poor, making it one of the weaker ports. It does include all 6 events, however. The ZX Spectrum version came in the same 1988 compilation, Game, Set, and Match 2. If the Amstrad version was underwhelming, the Spectrum one takes things a step further in the wrong direction. Graphics are crude, animations are stiff, and the only sounds I encountered was buzzing occasionally on a foul, making the game feel lifeless. Gameplay is clunky, and I couldn't qualify far enough to reach the high jump. I had enough of the game, quite simply, I gave up. All 6 events are present, but overall, and I hate to say this because people get mad at me, this is one of the worst ports of track and field. Jumping ahead to a modern console, the Xbox 360 received track and field via the Xbox Live Arcade in 2007. This version is a faithful recreation of the arcade original with authentic graphics and sounds.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 10.14 seconds. The distance, 9.18 meters. The distance, 19.04 meters.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 11.29 seconds. The distance, 91.50 meters. 2.36 meters.
In addition, the Xbox Live Arcade release also includes enhanced graphics and sounds. Sprites are sharper, visuals smoother, and audio upgraded. Gameplay remains unchanged.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 9.65 seconds. The distance, 8.37 meters. The distance, 86.01 meters.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 11.57 seconds. The distance, 91.50 meters. 2.30 meters.
The Nintendo DS saw track and field in 2007 as part of Konami's classic series Arcade Hits. Essentially, it's an emulation of the arcade ROMs. One quirk, the famous Chariots of Fire theme, has been replaced by a very similar track, likely due to licensing. I also experienced some flickering during gameplay. Otherwise, it's a faithful, portable version.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 10.45 seconds. The distance, 7.33 meters. The distance, 80.03 meters.
On your mark. Get set.
The time, 13.37 seconds. With distance 89.50 meters. 2.15 meters.
Finally, the Game Boy release in 1992 again is more of a hybrid with Hypersports. It features 5 of the original arcade events: the 100-meter dash, the long jump, the javelin throw, the 110-meter hurdles, and the hammer throw, plus new additions like weightlifting, archery, triple jump, swimming, discus throw, and the pole vault. Players can choose practice, competition, or versus mode. Competition mode doesn't use qualifying standards. You just play through all the events and your performance or score is tallied. you will see a Hyper Olympics game for the Sharp X1. Actually, it's similar to the MXS in that it is 2 discs. Hyper Olympic 84 Volume 1 and Volume 2. Those, despite the name, are actually ports of Hyper Sports and not Track and Field. More recently, Hamster Corporation released Track and Field for the PS4 and Nintendo Switch via their Arcade Archive series. Those are straightforward emulations. I'm not going to include them here simply because I don't want to pay $8 for them to play them once. That wraps up our look at Track and Field across its many platforms. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more port battles. Until next time, happy gaming. Peace.